10.
9,
8.
7,
8.
4. 3.
2.
1.
Good afternoon and welcome everyone to this BT Live Extra on wellbeing and mental health. It is really great to have you with us today. I'm the mental health lead for BT Business and it's a real honour actually to be hosting this session, but I do have some experts with me. Firstly, our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Richard Caddis, and secondly, our Senior Health and Wellbeing Specialist, Bruce Greenhalgh. Today, we're not just trying to break a Guinness World Record. We're here to emphasise the importance of mental health and actually offer some practical advice to equip you to help yourselves or your friends and colleagues and family members who may be struggling. And I mean, obviously setting a world record would be great, but for me, actually, it's the opportunity to help so many people in a single session that really matters. Before I hand over to Richard and Bruce, I just want to explain a little bit about why I'm here today. Supporting each other's mental health and well-being here in BT is absolutely crucial, and that's regardless of the roles we play in this organisation. And the good news is that lately there's been a very positive shift in stigma surrounding mental health, and people are becoming way more open about talking about their experiences and advocating this philosophy that it is okay not to be okay. And at BT, we've worked really hard to foster this openness, and we've had a ton of people bravely sharing their own experiences. And to those champions, a huge thank you for your contributions. They really have been remarkable. 3 years ago this week, I learned that one of my best friends had died by suicide. And this was someone I spent nearly 3 decades rock climbing with around the world, and I would never have imagined that it would end this way. And you know, moments like that really make us reflect on what more we could have done and what more I could have done then, and actually what more we can do now. And that's why I'm here today, because there's always ways for us to do more. BT offers us a load of tools and resources, and together we can support each other. Together we can make a difference. So get that radar switched on, and remember, please keep out looking for each other. And with that, I'm now delighted to hand over to Richard.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks for sharing your story today. I'm really proud at BT of what we do for mental health, both with the resources, with our strategy, and how we deliver that across the business. And for me, it's really important that we do that in an evidence-based and a considered way. And our strategy does align very strongly to the World Health Organization and the National Institute of Clinical Excellence on how to actually give managers the tools and resources and confidence in being able to address, recognise and signpost on mental health. And it's also really important as BT, it's part of our code of conduct that we put wellbeing and safety first. And again, I'm very proud that we make that very bold and authentic commitment. When we look at how we deliver our strategy in BT, we very much align it to prevention, informing and educating managers and colleagues, and also having the right evidence-based support services that people can access, not only the way that suits them, but at any time in and out of work. So I'm delighted to hand over to Bruce, who's going to talk about recognising and managing mental health.
Lovely. Thank you, Richard. So first of all, let me just run through what I'm going to cover over the next 15 minutes or so. So I'm going to give you a definition of mental health from the World Health Organization. We're going to look at recognizing signs of stress, the 5 ways to well-being, going to push the Your Wellbeing portal, and then we're going to leave a resource slide available to you on the BT Live site. So let's look at that definition first of all. So mental health is defined as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes their potential and can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community or their community. So a critical bit that I want to emphasize here is all of us, it's not just people that are ill, we all have mental health, all of us. And what I thought I'd do today is I'm going to be a little bit personal. We've talked, Chris mentioned about the importance of destigmatizing. I'm just going to mention 2 episodes in my life. One was back in '96, where I had my first absence through mental health, where I was actually experiencing a period of burnout. And then I'm going to talk about a second period back in 2019, just before the pandemic, where I did have a lot of strain. In fact, there was probably more issues on me in the second period of difficulty, but I didn't actually have an absence, and I'll explain why. So what I'd like you to do is, as I work through this little chart, I want you to think about you and what difference you could make. And in particular, keep an eye out for one thing that you could do that would be different. Just one thing, because that always can make a big difference. So first of all, we've all got pressures coming in. We only have to look at what's going on in the world to just see how many pressures. That's on a global level. But we've also got our family pressures, we've got stuff going on in our lives, we've got work pressures, etc. We all have this. Now, in 2019, the pressures I had was that my father was very ill and subsequently died. I had a house that was being built that then went horribly wrong. I thought I was going to be homeless. And then my relationship got into difficulty. So I had a triple whammy. And then the pandemic hit as well, just to really add to it. Now, what helped me in terms of alleviating the pressures was speaking to Richard, who actually for a period just took a little bit of work off me, and that made a difference. So keep an eye out for things that you can do that might reduce the number of pressures. We all seem to have at least 1 or 2 things that perhaps someone else could help us with and ease off. The second thing is perception, how you see the event. I can tell you, when that builder phoned me up, oh my God, I thought it was the end of the world. And if you look at some of the boxes, you'll see thoughts and feelings. I was catastrophizing, I was very emotional, I was very angry. That's when I went straight away into therapy. I mean, I'm a therapist. If I don't go for therapy when I'm in difficulty, and what that therapist helped me do was change the way I was seeing the pressures. The advantage of that was, although the pressures didn't change, the way I saw them, the internal pressure I was putting on myself eased. And that enabled a bit of a reduction in the way I was thinking and feeling, which, I mean, my body was reacting. My heart was through the roof, my breathing was in difficulty, I had sick feeling in my stomach, but these things started to alleviate. And then I was also maintaining the coping strategies. For me, it was mindfulness and running. One of the things you'll hear later is some of my other weird and wonderful things that I get up to. But what was also really important was knowing my stress signature. I knew that my breathing was a big indicator that I was in difficulty, and that's when I reached out. So know your stress signature. See if you can alleviate the causes. See if you can change your perception through talking to someone. It doesn't have to be a therapist. We've got the peer-to-peer network in the UK. We've got our mental health service. We've got the EAP. And we've always got managers and colleagues and friends and mentors. So talking to someone, really important. And maintain those coping strategies. What else was helpful and what made a big difference between 96 and 2019 was I had put a stronger base in for me. I had been investing in connection. These 5 ways to well-being come from the New Economic Foundation, who did an evidence-based study of what really makes a difference for well-being. And what they found through all the robust evidence, they could group them into these 5 areas. So quality connections makes a difference. It's not how many friends you got on Facebook, all right? I'm not saying that's a bad thing, right? It's quality. So it's friends, family, colleagues, peers, etc. And investing in them. When I got into difficulty, I've been looking after my friends for a long time. They lent in and supported me, as did my family. The other thing was I kept active. I didn't feel like being active. I didn't want to go out running or anything, but I did manage to get out walking and get out in fresh air. Now that was my passion. You've got to find out what you love and keep doing it. Yeah, stick to these activities. They really are important. Now another one is keep learning. What I mean by that is, LinkedIn Learning, great, and all the other things through BT Campus. But it's finding things that really you get passionate about, that you can get absorbed in, that you can enjoy. We've all got hobbies and interests that we might have let go, or perhaps don't pay the same attention to. During pandemic, people will be quite amused to learn that I learned to cook. Like properly, at least that's the feedback I've been getting. If you'd had my food beforehand, you'd know how awful it was. So just finding something that can really galvanize you into stimulating the grey matter and getting passionate. Giving is another one. Now, this one might sound a bit weird. Why would giving be good for your well-being? Well, doing something nice for other people changes the biochemistry in your own body. It raises endorphins and oxytocin. So when you're doing something nice for other people, you're doing something nice for yourself. So give money to charity by all means, but also do nice things. Phone friends, phone them when it's their birthday. Don't just message on Facebook or whatever. I'm not looking Facebook here, right? And then also, it's little things like thank yous, it's smileys, it's appreciating people, right? Reaching out. Now, my last one is take notice, or as I like to call it, be mindful. Now, I wanted to give you something, an experience that you can take away. So, bear with me on this one, all right? What I'd like you to do, if you feel able to close your eyes, that will help, but it's not mandatory. I'm just going to softly look down. What I'd like you to do is to be aware of how you are sitting at this very moment. Notice your posture, because mindfulness is about being aware moment by moment. And you remember when I said about stress signature? When it goes quiet, you can really tune in to how you are. And what I'd like you to do is, in this moment, I'd like you to actually start tuning in to your breath. Again, I know, I didn't say I wasn't going to be weird. What I'd like you to do is notice how you're breathing. In and out through the mouth, the nose, or a combination. And then what I'm going to invite you to do is to start counting your breaths. Now, I want you to focus very closely on your breath, fully in, fully out, and each in and out will be 1, then 2, etc. And we're going to do this for a minute. I bet you didn't expect a minute of silence. So I'm going to stop talking, and I'll tell you how I did it later in terms of the minute. So off you go. So there you go. That's about a minute. Notice the change in my voice. So just a minute of that calmed me. That awareness also will calm you. And you don't need now to actually have a timer on to know how long it is for you to be mindful for a minute. And if a minute is too long, just do one breath. You can really make a difference. So I want you to know that everything that I'm talking about is available through your well-being, the portal. You can access a shed load of resources and support and services on there. And you can put it on your phones. The QR code is in the top right-hand corner, so you can all access it. And these are the services that are going to be available. Now, I'm going to hand over to Chris in a sec, and I'm not going to go through these because, as you can imagine, that would take too long. But the EAP, the peer-to-peer, the mental health service, and if you like my mindfulness, come on one of my calls. They're 3 times a week, and not always me, because I know not everyone loves my voice. So I'm going to hand across to Chris.
Oh, thank you, Bruce. We love your voice. That was brilliant. I was super engrossed in that. I've never felt so calm in front of a TV camera. So The thing that really resonated for me actually were the 5 ways to well-being. So learning in particular, actually, I've been learning the piano since COVID. It is something I have zero aptitude in. It's probably sonic torture for my family, but I love it, love it, love it, love it. But people who really know me know it's the exercise is the thing I do most. And the commute to work, I'm lucky enough to work in the Bristol office. I'm able to cycle to work, and it's turned something which used to be a really stressful part of my day into something that's just a total de-stress. It'd be really great to hear from you about just the kind of things that you do practically to manage your stress levels.
Yeah, okay. Well, I share your love for cycling. Even this morning, I cycled in from Marylebone. It was a bit wet, but it was worth it. So I think that cycling is obviously one of the many physical activities that's really good, and that's something I do. My bigger love, though, is more running. I love running. But just to really confirm how weird and wonderful I am, I also have a cold shower every morning. Now, I know that's a bit like Marmite, but there is a rationale for this, okay? The cold shock is actually very good for the body. In fact, they're now using it, there's evidence base behind this, to treat depression. So that ability to feel refreshed and stimulated and to cope with a little stress, in actual fact, is really helpful for us.
Wow. I'm not convinced. I mean, Richard, are we likely to find you sort of bobbing around in an ice bucket?
Not deliberately, but one of my big passions, like yourselves, is being active. And since the pandemic, I've returned back to rowing on the Thames. So for me, that gives me a great physical workout. It gives me a great time away from the pressures and thoughts of the day. But I've also got that connection, be it with one other person in a double boat or a 4 or an 8, and it's just a great way to really switch off and just focus on doing something together.
I mean, the river in the morning must be magical. Are you far enough out that there's all the wildlife? Or are you just dodging barges?
No, it's beautifully quiet and the water is perfect. There's no better time.
Oh, that is wonderful. That is wonderful. I mean, I think one of the challenges we have in BT Business is we have offices all over the globe, and these days, of course, everyone's working in a hybrid manner. And we talk about supporting each other and asking the question, are you okay? It's much harder to do when everyone's remote. I mean, have you got any tips for how we can foster that kind of supportive relationship in a hybrid or remote working manner?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know Bruce will have some thoughts in addition to mine, but I think the key, as you opened with, it's that authentic leadership and management. It's actually taking the time and effort to know people, to understand what they're doing, understand a bit about where they are, what they're about, and then sort of recognising those periods where there may be pressures and stressors coming in, out of work, in work. I think one thing that I've been very attuned to over the last year or so is the geopolitical situation outside of, in the UK, admittedly, but also outside the UK. And what I've really learned in the last few weeks and months is actually just reaching out and saying we recognise it, we see that. It's back to those 5 ways of well-being, that we're making those connections, we're asking people if they're okay, and it doesn't need to be all of those very formal and very complex structured ways. It's actually just in every call, just making it an environment where people can then reach out. And we've had this a lot with people at the end of calls then asking to speak to their manager or speak to one of us. So it's really about gently embedding and amplifying that culture. And Bruce, you might have some more practical thoughts on that.
Slightly different, but along a similar theme. For me, it's quality listening. One of the things that is an indicator when someone's perhaps not themselves is how they answer the phone, how they first respond when they're not thinking. So really paying attention from the word go. Putting your phone down when you're talking to people. It's amazing how many people are sort of like this. So proper quality listening. And one of my amusing anecdotes at my own expense is that my kids, I overheard them telling a couple of psychotherapists once when I was there that Dad's a good listener when he's being paid. Yeah, so it applies to all of us. Quality listening is really important. I can't emphasise that enough.
And it's much harder to do remotely, isn't it? It's hard enough in a room with someone.
Yeah. Yeah. So that listening to not just the words, but the intonation, the pauses, the nuance, we give things away, the way we speak and what's behind the words.
And when you were talking about the stress symptoms earlier, you were
Yeah.
talking about the fact that some of some of it's related to your body, the physical symptoms coming
Yeah,
through.
yeah.
Again, they're harder to spot remotely, aren't
Yeah, they are. Behaviour, in the absence of visual information, when you can't see thoughts or feelings, you have to listen to behaviour, which is the non-verbal language that we're used to. So it's interesting how we can often pick up with people we know when they sound different. So I remember people, I remember hearing someone's salutation and knowing that's not them. So knowing your people well enough that you know them to know the difference when they're not well, that's important as well. So building that relationship in every interaction, not always just getting straight into the work. Relationship first, then the work, I would say.
And that means putting the effort in up front to build
It
that
is effort,
relationship.
yeah.
Which I guess, as part of modern leadership, is something we're taught to do, to try and bring a little bit of ourselves into the conversation.
And back
really
to that
listen.
connection on the 5 ways to well-being. That's that quality connection.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
It's been a really great session, so thank you for running today's session. We really hope that you've taken something away from today, including, importantly, where to get that support if you do need it. We'll let you know later if we've been successful in breaking the world record as soon as we've checked in with the adjudicators, who are at the moment behind the scenes. And we'll, of course, make sure that all of the resources from today are available online at the BT Live intranet site. Talking about mental health really is one of the key ways that we're going to remove the stigma and create a working environment that is truly inclusive. And by watching today, you've played your role in helping us do exactly that. So many thanks.